Hi everyone, this is Lowell, and I'm sharing just a little bit about the musicians that I admire and why I admire them. And the one that comes to mind today is Ludwig van Beethoven. And he was a fantastic musician, was trained early by a fairly demagoguery father situation. Uh, I think his childhood was probably fairly unpleasant. But he became very successful musician young, and much of his young or early music started sounding like Mozart, and Beethoven was just slightly older, next generation from Mozart, and early Beethoven sounded very similar to Mozart, and they were both in Vienna writing music for the Viennese audience. As Beethoven grew in fame and popularity as a pianist, as a composer in Vienna, he started losing his hearing, and apparently the problem that he had with his ears could be easily fixed today in our modern medicine, but it couldn't be fixed back then in his day, and so he increasingly grew more and more hard of hearing, to the point where he actually had no hearing, virtually no hearing at all. And what this did in terms of his composing is it caused him to be able to internally compose in his inner mind. And I've developed a little bit as a composer myself the same way. I don't compose at a piano. I compose out of my own imagination and hear the notes that I'm writing on the page as I'm putting them down and capturing the thoughts. And that was similar to what Beethoven had to do. He was forced to do because he was unable to hear the music that he was writing physically, but he heard it in his mind. And when I try to describe how this works for other people that maybe haven't had that kind of experience as a musician, it's very similar to reading a book. When you learn how to read music sufficiently, then you can read it like you're reading a book. And when you're reading a book, you can read it, silently to yourself. You don't have to say the words out loud. You can just imagine what the words are saying in your mind. And that's similar to what I'm talking about in terms of reading and writing music. Nevertheless, it was extremely frustrating for Beethoven to lose his hearing and to suffer the public humiliation. He thought that he was not going to be able to continue his life's work, his musical career. He thought it was over, and he went through a period of deep introspection. I understand that he went to to seek help from a convent, or from a Catholic church, priests and people that could help him through this time. He sought counsel, but he emerged out of that time of introspection with peace and with actually great comfort in his soul. He had overcome. He had basically faced the giant in his life. He had faced the difficulty that was confronting him, and he ended up writing his masterwork, the Ninth Symphony, where he wrote the Ode to Joy, and it was an expression of the fact that he had conquered within himself that great disturbance of wondering if he was actually going to be able to continue as a musician. And he did forge past that place of darkness and that place of great internal psychological pain, and emerged on the other side of it to actually declare to the world that I have moved past this, and I'm actually in a place of joy. And that famous chorus at the end of his Ninth Symphony. At the same time in his life, he also was writing extremely provocative works for string quartet, particularly his late string quartets that became really could have been written in the what we call the contemporary period in classical music in the 1900s. Very easily could exist in a musical language well past his time of writing, and it are still, these pieces are still studied theoretically by today's composers to give inspiration and insight into what great composition looks like. So Beethoven started out, had a great career, faced just this debilitating problem, and in a process moved past it and became the icon of creativity and somebody to admire who actually faced their giant and succeeded and brought the world great beauty in spite of the difficulties that he was facing, that he overcame them and served humanity with the grace and the gifts that he had.